as they tell him to interact with the other children. Cain sits with Silk, who displays her interest in him as she starts teasing him, but Corgino's son Habit interrupts them, giving Silk a compliment and expecting her to reciprocate, but Silk just silently greets him. One of Habit's friends demands that Cain show his respect to Habit, so he gets up to greet Habit, introducing himself as Baron Cain, but they think he is just a son of a baron, so they start looking down on him. Habit thinks that Cain must be from a poor family, since he didn't even mention his last name, and he threatens to have his friends beat him up if he doesn't apologize for his rudeness. But Cain tells Habit that he is the one being rude, so they go outside, where Habit wants to fight him. Habit reveals that his friends have God's blessing, and they can even use magic. The first guy steps up, and he tries to show off, conjures a really weak fireball, which Cain easily dodges. The other one also tries to be flashy, but he just launches some weak rock projectiles. They are about to attack again, but Silk becomes annoyed, so she tells them that Cain is not the son of a baron, but he is the baron himself, telling them about his impressive feats. She orders them to bow since he outranks them, and they obey, begging for his forgiveness as they leave the scene. Silk realizes that Cain has a dark side, because he let the situation drag on to make things more interesting, even though he knew that the kids were mistaken. But she promises to keep it a secret from Telestia if Cain goes on a date with her. At that moment, Telestia arrives, wanting to know what happened, but Silk just tells her that they are going to go on a date. Telestia becomes jealous, so Cain tells her that he will also go on a date with her. The king interrupts them, summoning Cain for their meeting, where they play the game Cain developed. The king enjoys the game, wanting to keep it exclusively between them, but Cain reveals that it's going to be made available to the public. The Duke is also there, and they take the chance to remind him that his engagement with their daughters is a secret, telling him to be careful on his date. The next day, Cain is given the deed and key to his new mansion. He goes to check it out, but when he arrives, he finds it's completely run down. As he enters, the lights don't work, so he uses his magic to light the way. He checks out the rooms, but finds that everything is filthy and all the rooms are empty. But it doesn't bother him, as he uses his magic to instantly repair and clean the entire mansion. He fixes up all the rooms, and the mansion is as good as new. He gets a visitor, and it turns out to be his maid Sylvia, who is overjoyed to be working for him again, and he meets his new butler, who introduces himself as Colin. Sylvia is keen to get started right away, ordering the other maids to start cleaning, but they find that everything is completely spotless, and Cain admits to cleaning everything with his magic. Colin reminds him to go back to his family, and Cain remembers that his older brothers are coming home to visit. We meet his brothers, and they are impressed he received a mansion and became a baron so quickly. Rain wants to visit his mansion, but her brothers warn her it could be haunted, since the mansion is so run down. But Cain assures her that it will be okay. They go to visit his mansion, and they are shocked because it's not run down at all. His father finds it strange, because the mansion was falling apart the last time he visited, but he realizes it must have been Cain's doing. They are impressed with all the rooms, but his father says that it's missing some art. Cain wonders why he needs art, and Garm explains that nobles are very fond of it, decorating their mansions with things like paintings, armors, and even mounted monsters. Hearing this, Cain decides to put one of his monsters up. Sylvia suddenly screams, and they wonder what is going on. The maids are shocked, as they see an enormous red dragon, and Cain realizes he forgot to tell them about it. His father demands an explanation, and Cain says it's just a monster that he defeated. His father is shocked, wondering when he defeated it, and Cain reveals it was when he was in the forest a while back. His father tells him that a red dragon would be considered a calamity-level monster, and even A-ranked adventurers wouldn't be able to defeat it. His father says that the mounted red dragon would be worth 1,000 platinum coins, and Cain is shocked thinking that would be worth $100 million. They suddenly hear another scream, so they rush over to check it out. His mother asks him about the toilet, because it sprayed water at them, and it was like nothing they had ever experienced before. Cain explains that he used his magic to make it shoot water, and Rain asks him to install one in their house. Garm calls them dramatic for freaking out over a toilet, but they tell him to try it out himself. So he gives it a go, and finds it delightful, instantly changing his mind, and requesting one as well. His father tells him that his visitors will also enjoy the experience, and Cain wonders what he means. His father says that when a noble is given a mansion, it's a rule that they must host a debut party, and Cain is shocked to learn he has another debut. Later that night, he wonders what he is going to do, but Colin has prepared a list of people he needs to invite, and the things that he will need. As he checks out the list, he sees Corgino's name, and he wonders why he should invite him. But Colin says that since he is a high-ranking noble, it would be bad not to invite him. Cain wonders why the king isn't on the list, and Colin tells him that only high-ranking nobles are allowed to invite him. He thinks about preparing the food and drinks for the party, but panics because he also needs to get a gift for all his guests. But Sylvia gives him some ideas, and he creates a glass using his magic. Most people are used to just using porcelain, so he decides to give out glasses to all of his guests. He moves on to preparing the food. Using a recipe from his previous life, he comes up with the Hamburg steak, and Sylvia finds it to be absolutely delicious. She tries his drink next, and she is amazed by its fizzy bubbles, wondering what it is, and Cain explains how he used his magic to add bubbles to regular wine. Colin interrupts, telling Cain he is being called by the king. At the palace, the king is mad at him because he never got an invite to his party, and we learn that the Duke has been taunting him for not getting an invitation. Cain comes up with an excuse, saying that he just wanted to give him his invitation in person, and he just hasn't had the chance until now. The king is overjoyed hearing this, and Cain is relieved. The night of the party arrives, and Cain welcomes all his guests. The Duke arrives with Silk, and they are amazed by the red dragon. Cain thanks all his guests for joining him, and he makes a toast. Everyone is amazed by the drink, and the Duke comments on how the glass shines like a treasure. The king arrives, and he tells everyone to just enjoy themselves. He tries out the sparkling wine, and finds it absolutely delightful. He is served the Hamburg steak next, and he finds it rich and juicy, and there is even a cheese surprise in the middle. The queen comes rushing out, wondering what's up with his toilet, calling it revolutionary, and demanding one for the palace. The king tries it out himself, and immediately demands Cain to install one in the palace. The king compliments him on his hospitality, and all the nobles applaud him. But at that moment, Colin tells him that Corgino is arriving. Corgino rudely approaches, calling the house small, but is shocked when he sees the red dragon. He heads into the dining room, looking down on everyone else. They serve him the sparkling wine, which catches him off guard, but he pretends not to like it. He tries the Hamburg steak next, and calls it disgusting, but he can't stop himself from eating it. He demands more sauce, snatching it from Sylvia, and Cain is annoyed at his behavior, but Colin tells him he shouldn't cause a scene. But Cain has an idea, thinking things will be fine as long as he isn't the one causing the scene. Cain offers Corgino the glasses as a gift, but Corgino demands he hand over all of his glasses. Cain apologizes, saying that the glasses are his gift to everyone, but he says he has a bigger surprise for him. Corgino gets excited, but it turns out to be the king. Corgino is shocked to see him there, and the king tells him his behavior was unacceptable, when he should be leading by example as a high-ranking noble. Corgino runs away, and Silk finds it amusing how Cain set him up. However, the king realizes that Cain used him, and he ends up lecturing him for hours. Cain visits the barracks, where he runs into Vice Captain Gazard. He explains that he was told he could leave his monster materials there, so Gazard takes him to a warehouse where he can leave the materials. However, Cain says the room isn't big enough, and Gazard thinks he must have something big, like the red dragon at his mansion. But Cain says it's nothing as impressive, saying it's just an earth dragon. But Gazard is just as shocked, saying that it would take a whole party of A-rank adventurers just to take one out. They head out into the courtyard, and Cain takes out all of the monsters from his item box. Gazard can't believe how many monsters there are, but these are really just his A-rank monsters, and he secretly still has S-rank monsters in his box, after the gods just gave him too much power. Gazard wonders if Cain is a hero or a disciple of the gods, but Cain just says he's an ordinary boy, and Gazard decides not to ask too many questions. He tells Cain it will take a while to appraise all the monsters, and Cain says he can come back whenever they are ready. As he goes to leave, Gazard stops him, asking him to help train the knights, and says that he wants to show him off to his captain. Gazard introduces Cain to the knights as the hero who defeated 30 orcs to save the princess. Cain wonders where the captain is, and Gazard says the captain will probably arrive as soon as the mock battles begin. Cain imagines the captain as a scary monster, but Gazard tells him not to worry. He decides to start the mock battle, but one of the knights speaks out, feeling bad because Cain is just a child, so Gazard tells the knight to go first. The knight gives Cain the first move for free, telling him to show him what he can do. Cain uses his boost spell, dashing at him, and instantly disarming the knight. The knight immediately admits defeat, and Cain thinks he overdid it. He tries to end things, but Gazard grabs onto him, telling him to take on all the knights at once. But the fight is stopped, as the captain Tefana jumps onto the scene. She wonders why her knights are picking on a child, hugging Cain, and telling him that everything is going to be okay, thinking he is just a lost child who wandered in. She demands an explanation from Gazard, and he explains that Cain is actually the hero who defeated 30 orcs. Hearing this, Tefana's expression immediately changes, as she becomes excited to meet him, and she challenges him to a duel. Gazard tells her to introduce herself first, but she says they will get to know each other with their swords. The knights think that even Cain doesn't stand a chance, because Tefana has the title of Master Swordsman. They prepare to fight, but Cain says he only has a wooden sword, but Tefana attacks him anyway. She uses her boost skill, charging at Cain, and the two exchange blows. The knights are shocked to see Cain keeping up with the captain. The two seem evenly matched, but Cain boosts his speed even more, getting behind the captain and winning the duel. Tefana becomes emotional with the result, and immediately decides that she will marry him. Everyone is shocked, and Cain says it's too soon since he is only 10 years old, and he doesn't even know anything about her. So Tefana introduces herself. Besides being the captain of the Royal Knights, she is an honorary viscount and daughter of a duke from the northern forest. She tells him not to worry about age, since she is an elf, who will live at least 300 years, so her looks won't change for a long time, but Cain thinks that was not the problem. Cain hides behind Gazard, saying that marriage is a big decision, and they can't just decide things on their own so easily, especially since he is already engaged to Telestia and Silk. He cries for Gazard's help, but he just pretends to be sleeping. Tefana agrees that they can't decide things on their own, so she tells Gazard to arrange an audience with the king, but Cain thinks that telling the king would be a terrible idea, but he has no choice, and gets dragged along with them. They have a meeting with the king, who wonders why Cain has come to visit. Tefana announces that she wants to marry Cain, and the king asks what happened. Cain explains that he beat Tefana in a duel, and that was what led to her proposing to him. The king asks him if he has told her about his other engagements, but Cain says he wasn't able to, since it's meant to be a secret. The king explains that elves used to be kidnapped and enslaved for their beauty, but their first king changed things and made peace with the elves. The elf nation was taken in and put under the protection of the kingdom, and he reveals that Tefana is essentially their princess. The king tells Tefana that Cain is already engaged to Telestia and Silk. She seems disappointed to learn this, but as he starts to apologize, Tefana says that it only makes her want him even more. The king acknowledges her feelings, but tells her she needs to write a letter to her father to get his permission. Tefana leaves to write her letter, but drags Cain away so they can fight some more. After they leave, the king is surprised Cain was able to beat Tefana, and he wonders how he could be so strong at such a young age. Gazard mentions Cain's reaction when he asked if he was a disciple of the gods, and the prime minister thinks they should test him by using a certain book. A few days later, Cain is exhausted, and he runs into Gazard again, who asks him why he looks so tired. Cain explains that Tefana has been forcing him on countless dates, which are really just the two of them fighting. Gazard thanks him for helping Tefana get stronger, and Cain reveals he has also gained the Master Swordsman title. They suddenly hear Tefana's voice, and Cain tries to run, but Gazard drags him away, saying the king wants to see him. Cain thinks he is in trouble, but the king shows him a book that contains emperor-level magic, passed down in the royal family, which is said to have been written by the first king. Cain checks it out, and is amazed to see there is another level of magic, but the king reveals that no one is able to read the book, because it's actually written in Japanese. Cain realizes he messed up, thinking that the first king must have also been someone who was reincarnated from Japan. The king asks about Cain's identity, and he realizes he can't hide the truth any longer, so he explains how he was reincarnated with the memories from his previous life. Garm wonders if he is really his son, and Cain claims that he is, because the gods told him that was the case. Everyone is shocked to hear he met the gods, and he recalls how he met the 7 gods during his baptism. The king can't believe he met all 7 gods, and they ask him to show his status. Cain opens his real status window, shocking everyone as they see his level 10 blessings and his title as God's chosen. The king thinks that with his title as God's chosen, everyone in the world would bow to him. But Cain doesn't want that to happen, saying that he is happy with how things are in his life, with the adventures he's had, and the people he has met, so he wants them to just treat him the same as before. The king agrees to his request, but jokes that he could be king if he wanted. Tefana interrupts the meeting, revealing the letter from her father, agreeing to let her marry Cain, so she grabs Cain and takes him away, heading straight to the courtyard. Meanwhile, the king orders everyone to keep what they learned about Cain a secret, hoping that he will continue to protect the country, as well as their people. Later on, we see Telestia and Silk after they find out about his engagement to Tefana. They are mad at him at first, but they manage to accept the news, and they tell him not to accept all the proposals that he will receive, wondering how many people they will have to share him with. Tefana bursts in looking for him, wanting to share their love together, and the girls wonder what he has been doing with her. But he gets dragged away, as he tries to explain himself. Later on, Cain has another look at the first king's book, and there is a message that says if he can read the book, then he must also be from another world, so it's a record of his own experience. The king is introduced as Yuya Esford, a man who also died in an accident, but he was summoned to the world in his original body. Cain is suddenly interrupted, as Telestia and Silk wonder what he is up to. They think he must be studying for the academy entrance exams, and they ask to study with him, but he tells them he is too busy, so they ask him about the following day, but he says that is even worse for him, and he quickly runs away. However, he ends up running into Tefana, who asks him to fight with her the next day, but he apologizes to her and runs away from her as well. The next day, it turns out to be his 12th birthday, and he is finally old enough to register as an adventurer, so he heads straight for the guild. He looks around the place, and he is impressed by the capital's guild. He runs into an adventurer, who can tell it's his first time, so he reminds him to stay safe, because he only has one life. As he walks off, Cain gets a feeling he has seen him before. He goes up to the counter, and the clerk introduces herself as Tia. Cain asks to register as an adventurer, and she tells him to fill out a form. As he fills it out, he wonders if he should mention he is a baron, but he decides to leave it out, thinking it shouldn't make a difference. After filling it out, Tia tells him to put a drop of his blood on the crystal, so he can register for his guild card. She tells him he starts off in G rank, and he thinks about his tutors, who mention that they were in D rank. As Tia is explaining things to him, some adventurers interrupt, telling her to stop wasting her time with a kid. The man tells Cain to go home to his mother, trying to kick him, but Cain easily